think.
Yeah, that's an important point because we are seeing the federal government side of this case up to this point. We've not seen the defense, other than what they've said on television, lay out the details of how they are going to try and rebut some of those claims. What was interesting when I was listening to Caitlin's interview with the former Attorney General Bill Barr last night, frankly, it was all interesting to some degree, but he was talking about the idea of evidence of fraud and that there have been 2.5 years, no evidence of fraud. There's pretty much no way the president couldn't know based on everything laid out in the indictment. Take a listen to what he said.
Here we are 2.5 years and still they haven't come forward with any evidence. And in fact, as the indictment puts forward, you have Giuliani saying, yeah, we have a lot of theories, but we don't have any evidence. I mean, that's a pretty big admission. No evidence. They wanted to overturn the election and they had no evidence of outcome determinative fraud.
And I think what's striking is so much of what we heard from Trump's legal defense team has been state of mind, what he actually believed. And what the prosecutors are saying are, look at what he's been told repeatedly over and over. And also, there has been no evidence still to this moment.
And it goes to the question about competency, right? So is he going to take the track of, I knew it was a lie, but I said it anyway, so he can take that stance? Or he's going to say, I truly believe it, and yet all the evidence proves the contrary. So maybe he's not in the right state of mind. I think at the core of this, though, Donald Trump decided to pursue his own passion and desire for power at the cost of our vote, and not just my vote, your vote, the American people's vote. It didn't matter to him. He was going to do anything at all costs to stay in power. And I think him putting his own personal ambitions over the bedrock of our democracy is at the core of this entire, indictment.
Yeah, and specifically at the core of the civil rights component.
Right, yeah, which is, I think, the most fascinating part of all of this. Maybe the most complex, but fascinating. David?
Yeah, well, first of all, just to this point about whether he knowingly was lying about this or whether he actually believed he lost, it certainly seems from the indictment that the prosecutors are going to attempt to make the case in court that he actually knew he lost, because they laid out, I forget what the total count was, maybe 11 different people who went in and explained from his attorney general to the DNI, Senior
Department of
Advisors,
Homeland
campaign.
Security, DNI, Joint Chiefs of Staff.
So like they
Jason
put,
Miller still on his campaign.
Exactly. So they put this entire litany of people who explained to him that he lost. So it seems like they're going to argue to a jury that he must have known he lost.
But it is interesting. Bill Barr, I think, said, and some other lawyers, that's going to be sort of the more difficult part for prosecutors, is to really get into the mind, prove intent in the moment.
He said it was going to be complicated, but I want you to listen to what he said, kind of compared to what Trump's lawyers said, go back to back, and what he thinks Jack Smith hasn't shown yet. Listen.
I would like them to try to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Donald Trump believed that these allegations were false.
The government, in their indictment, takes the position that he had actual knowledge that he had lost the election and the election wasn't stolen through fraud. And they're going to have to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt.
Which is a high bar, of course.
That's a high bar. Now, that leads me to believe that we're only seeing a tip of the iceberg on this.
Welcome back. We have brand new CNN polling this morning. It shows 41% of Americans approve of the way President Joe Biden has handled his job, and nearly 60% disapprove. David Chalian, CNN's political director, is back. David, you've been combing through the numbers. What's behind them?
Well, take a look at how stubbornly low his approval rating has been over time. So you said he's at 41% in our brand new poll, which is not a number any president running for re-election would want to see at this point in the presidency. But it's the fact that he's been sort of stuck there. Look, in May and March, he was at 42. It wasn't until in the aftermath where Democrats overperformed expectations in the midterms that he got a little bit of a bounce. But now he's settled back down here. Look at this, folks, by party. And this is the number that I know is going to keep folks up in the White House late at night. The independents, 36% job approval among independents. Again, it is there. It is constant. That's where it was in May. Independents were a critical part of Joe Biden's success in winning the White House. And then take a look at where Joe Biden falls compared to his modern day predecessors in this job at this point in their presidency. So in June or July of the third year now. And you see that Joe Biden is down there with Jimmy Carter, Donald Trump. Ronald Reagan is the exception to the rule there. The other guys are one-term presidents. Ronald Reagan was down to 42% at this point.
How'd that end?
That ended with a pretty resounding re-election victory in '84. So I'm sure that the Biden White House would like to follow that Reagan model. But he is in a danger zone for an incumbent president heading into the re-election.
Especially if it is the economy, stupid, right? Especially that, right? What do the numbers show?
So things are not good in terms of how Americans perceive the economy, Poppy, despite all these positive economic indicators that we've been seeing. Take a look here. It's about 25% say that economic conditions in this country are very good or somewhat good. 75% say they are poor. Take a look at that number about economic conditions being good over time. And you see here, it's been a pretty dour mood for Americans about the economy for quite some time during this Biden administration right now. Nearly a small, slim majority, 51% of Americans tell us they think we are still in a downturn and that the economy is going to get worse. So that is a number there. And then I showed you his overall approval. Look at Biden's approval rating on the economy and on inflation. It is 37% approval on the economy, 30% approval on inflation. That's lower than his overall job approval, meaning the economy is a bit of a weak spot.
Yeah, I know we're going to get to the other really interesting polling, but can you blame people when every time I go to the grocery store, it still costs me more? I know inflation's getting better. I'm not arguing with the facts, but I'm paying more.
Yeah.
And it's really expensive to get a mortgage now. So, like, these are two staple things for folks.
There's no doubt about it. And as we know, perception is reality,
Yes.
right? I mean, so you can have all the good economic indicators, and this is what we, learn from White House sources all the time. They are trying to have him out on this Bidenomics tour because they know they have a sales job to do to try to get Americans
And they
to feel
think they have
better
a
about
story
what
to
they've
tell.
done. Yeah,
I mean, they are
exactly.
convinced that if people just recognize what's happening, they will understand and believe, and it's been a disconnect throughout the course of the last couple of years. Poppy mentioned that there's another poll as well, or some other numbers that are fascinating, which is asking if President Biden legitimately won the presidency. 61% say yes. But look at the breakdown. Nearly 7 in 10 Republicans say Biden did not legitimately win. That's jarring.
It is jarring. In fact, that 69% number now that you see Republicans saying Biden didn't legitimately win, it's ticked back up here. And this is the context. This was taken in the month of July, taken before the Trump indictment. But this is the context in which the president goes to that courthouse today, in which that indictment exists for Americans. To keep in mind that nearly 7 in 10 Republicans say that Joe Biden didn't legitimately win the election. That's why Donald Trump believes he's created for himself politically a successful alternate universe from the facts laid out in the indictment.
Maura, you worked with Adam Kinzinger, John Boehner. I know that they're not reflective of where the Republican Party is right now writ large, with Donald Trump being the front runner. But still, 7 in 10 Republicans is jarring to you.
Absolutely. That's jarring to me because I think about the Republicans that I worked for, as you mentioned, the ones who I talk to on a daily basis. Part of the reasons why I'm a conservative and I can't justify that number. I mean, to me, that just doesn't make sense to me. But I think it also plays into what's happening right now and why Donald Trump is seizing on this election lie. But it builds into this conspiracy that he has been able to convince 7 out of 10 people that he won the election in 2020.
Do those numbers, to you, say they are more against Biden or for Trump? Numbers.
I think if you're
Do
looking
you see what I'm
at,
saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think objectively, people are disappointed in what Biden has done. So it's easy to
Say, well, he shouldn't have been there.
he should have been there in the first place, and let's just go with what we thought was better for us because he's telling us it's better for us to have him in there. Donald Trump doesn't have a plan. He has never really had a plan, and as far as we can tell so far, his entire election, his entire campaign right now is simply vendettas. So unfortunately, he has not only lied to the people who support him and give them their hard-earned money, but he's also setting them up for failure because he doesn't have anything to go forward with.
And I would just note, guys, a couple other findings in this poll that I think are telling going forward. The majority has little confidence or no confidence at all that elections are going to reflect reality in our society. That is a problem for a functioning democracy. Yep. And then the country is about split in half, 50-50, about whether or not elections will be overturned for partisan purposes. The fact that half the country says yes, that will happen, again, that shows a weakness in the the fundamentals of our democracy.
It just gets to the thing that should keep people up at night. Like, this moment right now is not about getting to tomorrow, where it seems like the former president is most days. It's so much bigger than that, and how to dig out of wherever this is. Because guess what? You ask Republicans on Capitol Hill who won the election, and they're being candid with you, maybe 1 out of every 50 says Trump did. They all know. They all know.
Yeah.
And it's their supporters that they're telling. David, Maura, thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Appreciate
guys,
it.
thank you.